am super excited to have you here on the show. And today I'll be talking to a guest. She's a sister, she's a friend, and she'll be sharing a couple of things with us that y'all will have been thinking about it, I'm very sure. And this is something that has been very, 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 very big in my heart. And I was asking someone, and I'm like, is it really, how do you put it? Is it really possible for two people to be in the same house without having disagreements? And everybody kind of says, no, it's not possible. People will have disagreements. People will have this. People will have that. But the question now is, how do we manage them? How do we resolve them? Now that I know the pandemic is easing down and all that, but let's talk about conflict resolution, right? Let's talk about it. How are you managing it in your home, right? How are you managing it in your home? It is very important. How are you managing it? How? So most of the time people feel like, oh, I have not been able to. A lot of people have their own different reasons why they feel like they're supposed to have a perfect there's no perfect home. So can we just put it out there? There's no perfect home. There's no one family that can do everything without making their mistakes. Even our pastors, even our prophets, all the ones there's no one family that knows everything and will tell you that, oh, everything is always perfect in our home. No. But today my guest is going to be sharing from her own experience. It was her 13th wedding anniversary. Can we just give the Lord a shout? Hallelujah. Yes. So yesterday she had her 13th years in marriage, guys. Not 1, not 2, not 5, not 10, but 13. But we are still grateful to God for seeing them thus far. They have 3 amazing, beautiful children. And y'all want to hear my guest speak. So this morning, this is another song of hers, and it is Wonder. It's one of the songs I really like. So we'll be listening to Wonder, and we'll be expecting my guest. So listen to this beautiful song from her 2019 EP, which is Wonder. Hey. Hi, people. Welcome.
Wow, people.
Hi, sis. How are you doing? I don't know why she has tambourine, sis. I have no clue, but I will just take her as she is. That's all I can
When you
do
showed
for
up with
you.
your bell, I'm like,
Oh,
I need to compliment this.
my belly is like our mantra right now. Like we kind of can't do anything that much without that bell these days. Because God is just so good, you know. God is just God.
Hallelujah.
God is. How have
Hallelujah.
you been? How you doing?
Oh, we're doing good by the
Hey, you're
grace of
looking
God.
fresh. Oh my Jesus, people.
Ah,
She
the
inspires my
Lord's
lip
doing.
gloss today. You know, I had to lip gloss myself because she just the inspiration, but she have add to the
Oh,
inspiration.
mm,
So
it is good.
people, let's say a big congratulations to Sister Ife and her husband. Yesterday was their 13th year. Oh my God, 13 years, not 5, not 10, 13.
The big five.
Guys,
We
it's
heard a
not
lot about
easy.
that five.
So, you know what we're going to do today? We're going to put Sister Ife on the spot. It's not really on the spot because I'm giving that, like, you know, you give someone expo, you kind of tell the person that this is what I'm going to do. So, today, she's going to give us 13 things she has learned in 13 years. People,
Wow, you didn't give me expo on that one though. Like you did
people.
not directly, but
You see, this is how the Lord works. This is how the
for
Lord works.
13.
But
Wow.
13 lessons you learned in your 13, so far you learned in your 13 years in marriage.
Okay, let's go there.
So you're number one. People get out your pens. If you are single, if you are
No.
1 year, if you are 3 months, begin to bring out your pens. Start writing nudges.
Disclaimer. You know, yesterday I wrote, like we're just in the teenage years, So it's not like we know much. We don't know much.
They've not
Okay.
born me.
So it's just 13 years. We have a long way to go, man. So,
Oh my.
Yes. Okay. So, first lesson.
Okay.
First lesson.
Okay.
Right? And I know it's a common one that we get to hear from our parents, from our friends, from marriage counseling, from our pastors, from well-meaning people that God is a constant in that equation, right? So God is a constant, and if we want to have that home or that marriage where we want where we want peace, when we want joy, when we want that love to be, when we want that love to last a very long time, because, there will be seasons. No, I don't want to even go deep yet, but when we want that love to stand the test of time, then God is the major factor that has to be there. So I feel like that's the foundation. That's the first thing.
Wow.
So that's number one. And that God factor manifests in different ways in each relationship, right? So
yeah.
Disclaimer, I want to say that each relationship is different. Every relationship is different, and you will see that show forth in every relationship. So
okay.
Yeah.
Number
two. You're in a relationship or getting married to a whole human being. A whole human being. So you know how all of us, you go into marriage, you go to marriage counseling, like I said, you read these books, you get ready, you go for singles and married programs and things and then you're married to this whole human being who is entirely different from what the books have, gave you, and all the tips and tricks and whatever. And so now you're left with, okay, so how do I walk around all that I know, considering that I have this whole human being, this whole child of God that I've been called to love for the rest of my life. So so that's number two. So this is a different whole human being that has come into your life, and you have come into their life, and then you have to, find a way to mendel everything and make their life better for having you there. That's number two. Number three, I didn't write a list, but number three,
okay.
I feel like, okay, so marriage is between two, should be between two forgivers. Like we've heard all these things. Like we've heard, like we see posts, we've heard all these things, but it's in leaving them out, right? It's okay to have 100 steps or whatever to marriage, but it's in the living out of all these values, of all this, you know, all these nuggets and wisdom from the word of God that we already know. Like it's in the actual living of it. So like I said, two constant forgivers, because we are flawed people, heavily flawed. And marriage tends to, like, you know, put the stethoscope on you, like, wow, this is you.
It just open you to the world and show you
Exactly.
that I'm perfect. Shut up.
No, we are not though. We are not. So
Wow.
so yeah. So what was the point again? What was
Number 4.
last one? Because
we are here for you. So number 1, you said God is a constant. Number 2 is your partner, your 2 different unique partners. Number 3 is marriage is between 2 forgivers. Number 4.
Okay, so and the question was, what have I learned, right?
13 lessons you've learned in 13 years.
All right, so you cannot necessarily you cannot necessarily import all those ideas that you've had in your head, probably from your own experience growing up in your own family and things like. So you are 2 unique people coming from different backgrounds, right? So you cannot necessarily just lift all those things and then import them into your own family. There will be a problem. So you need to also see
your own family culture.
Exactly. Thank you. Create your own family culture and not necessarily live off of, you know, what was the norm in your family growing up. Yeah. That's number 5 or 4.
So number 5 now.
That we have a long way to go. We have a long way to go. Lessons in marriage. You have to be a listener.
So it's not lessons in marriage generally, but things that you've learned personally. That.
Oh yeah, definitely. My own personal. Oh yeah. I have to. You have to be a listener. You have to be a listener. You know, you have to be a listener. You need to learn how to put your guards down and try to empathize with your partner, right? And try to be in their shoes. That way you understand where they're coming from. They're telling you something. You're trying to really understand where they're coming from. You know, and it is that understanding that helps us to navigate conflict. But no, sometimes in marriage we tend to even listen to just respond and say, I know the proper response to give you. I will show you that I know how to speak, blah blah blah, and then we lose the person, and then, you know, issues just go out of hand and everything. So me personally, as you're asking me, you know, I've learned and I'm learning to empathize and to be in my husband's shoes. And I've seen him do that a lot too. Like to just see things from my own perspective, and then we try to reach a compromise or a middle ground, and we just meet halfway and then go from there. It's easy to say though, but when push comes to shove, right, you are left with decision making. And
Number 7.
Number 7. Wow. This one, okay, 7 is a key number. This one, you know, yesterday was our marriage anniversary, right? And I was just, after we prayed, in fact, late last night, we had a family meeting and with the children, and they were just sharing, you know, it was about sharing really. And we prayed, and then late last night, there was this thought that just came to me, and like, so the marriage involves, these things are really basic, but so the marriage itself involves, of course, children, right? Yeah. It involves our children, all right? So this coming together has promised these children a haven of peace, right? Okay? So as parents, we owe them that haven of peace. So that's another thing, right? It has to be a haven of peace, because we owe them that, really. We owe them that. And it just dawned on me, like, you know, we know all these things, but sometimes we need to be reminded that it's just beyond us. It's just, we can't. I'll move on to my next lesson. My next lesson is, so in marriage, it is beyond you. Of course, it is beyond you. I'll say that again. It is beyond you. You've lost your privacy. And I'm not saying you cannot have your me time and all that, but we come to a point where we start planning around people in our family, because we're in a generation where we are, I don't know, self-sufficiency is on another level, on another high in this generation, and all that, with
Very
the
true.
social media, with the, I don't know, with the pressure to fit in and all that. And before you know it, and you're running and chasing after all these things, your family members are feeling left behind and all that. So yeah, that was point number.
So we're going to number 9 now. So for those that
Wow,
just joined us,
9.
welcome.
Okay.
So
You're
yesterday, Sister
welcome.
Ife had her 13 years wedding anniversary. And today, before we start the topic for the show, which we already used almost half of the show to actually talk about this, we're asking
halfway.
her 13 lessons that she's learned in 13 years. So right now she's at number 9.
Okay. Wow, this spot you put me on there. Okay.
Is it wonderful?
Number nine. Okay. So, I learned that. Oh, I'm learning. I'm learning. It's a journey, right? So I'm learning.
Yes, yes.
There's no finality to our learning in marriage, right? There are different seasons in marriage, right? So we need the grace of God to navigate each season. You know how before you get married, say, if you survive the first 5 years, so is guaranteed. Blah blah blah. Interestingly, it was a conversation that came up yesterday. I was like, you know what? For me, I feel like it's not it. Like, because the individual I got married to in the first 5 years grows, right? And I also am growing, right? And then we just become two different human beings along the way. And so it's just continuous learning of that person, So there are different seasons in marriage, in growing. Children come along. There will be seasons of provision. There will be seasons of lack. And I'm not prophesying evil things or whatever, but there are different seasons when we would have to abase and abound, where we have to rely, on the grace of God to basically carry through.
Yes.
There are seasons in marriage where, when you met this person, when I met him, he didn't. He's going to get back at me for doing this, but he's a mature person. He didn't have the pot belly, But yeah, he does now, and
it's your fault.
And I'm exactly. It's also part of it's my fault, If you look at the pictures yesterday, I've added weight too. Like pregnancies have come along. When I didn't look my best, and if he's loved me through that journey, and I love him too throughout that journey, right? So it's also a journey of seasons, right? Of becoming who God has called us to be, and we're doing this together. And this smile on my face is not like that smile is always there throughout the journey. There are days when you're like, I don't want to see this person. But then, it's His grace of God that allows you to see God in them. And I was like, my ponderings from yesterday night, how we are alive because God sees us through His eyes of mercy. If we can only extend that for our spouses, our children, you just see them and you see God in them. Like, it helps you. It helps you to be compassionate. So yeah.
I
think that point is
I
2-in-1.
This as number 10 is loving through those different seasons, even when things are different. Yeah. And I know that a lot of people, and this is a lot of reasons people have divorce. Like they get divorced because they're like, I can't find that person I got married to. Like, I don't know where he is. I have no clue who this person is, right? And you ask yourself several times, but this is the same person. Like, everybody has known you guys together. Everybody has, you get what I'm saying? And you saying that just makes it understand that it's not just by your own like personal works when it comes to like these different seasons in your journey in marriage, but it's that, like you said, God's constant love. I think that's one thing that we look so much to people and we leave the originator of marriage itself. If you get me, we're not talking about marriage, but let's continue. Number 11. So number 11.
Oh, we're almost there.
Yes,
we're almost there. Wow. I'm not going to expatiate on this one, but the truth is, Yeah, it's in the Bible, so we can go open it and expound on it if we want to. But
Yeah.
both of you owe yourselves fellowship in every sense of that word. You okay? No, let me say oh now makes it look like legality or whatever. But you you owe yourself fellowship in prayers, in fact, that's after my number 1 point. That should have been the second, but I'm doing this randomly. Yeah, you need fellowship in terms of prayer, in terms of communication, just talking when it's not like you wait until things fall apart before, sharing who you are or things you want them to know about you and everything. It just comes naturally out of spending time together and all that. So that fellowship is needed. You now aren't like the sole owner of your body. You share that with your spouse. You at some point, their needs as well, right? You just as the years go go by, they don't even need to ask you. Like, you already know their needs.
Yeah.
And you're there. Yeah, and you're there. So the fellowship.
Number 12.
It's needed. Wow, number 12. Ah, finances, and that one is complicated because it's really complicated, but every good and perfect gift comes from God, including provision. And when we handle it with care, knowing that we're blessed. And I don't even know how to. It's so touchy that I don't even want to talk about it. But
no,
it's something that really shakes homes to their roots, right?
Very true.
But then it goes back to the point that I spoke about having compassion and that and eyes of mercy. If you have that compassion, of course you won't overspend and abandon the family's need, and then you are blasting.
So it's me first, me first. And that's the thing. When you bring it back to all those points you've said, if you put yourself first, your family is second. It means that you will not what do you call it? You will not give your children the haven of peace that you're talking about, right? If you don't give your children the haven of peace, you can't have the fellowship you want to have with your partner. People will test that if you have to write a book so that I can just start doing editing. I know how to edit. I can do editor job. Don't worry. I got you. But our final guy, Sister Ife, is giving us 13 lessons she's learned in 13 years of marriage, and she's giving us her number 13.
Okay. Okay, so the next one is this.
The last
one. Malice is not a welcome guest.
Hey, please scream it to the back.
Malice is not a welcome guest because malice, anger, frustration, all of them are tied together. So when that altar of malice is empowered, then things fall apart.
Wow.
I think that's a hard lesson I learned from, those first 5 years they tell us about, right? Like, no, I know that, but it's not a welcome guest. It is not a welcome guest.
Wow, guys. Please, wherever you are, put your hands together for Sister Ife. Okay, Sister Ife, you want to say something?
Thank God. I thank the Holy Spirit, though, because you did. This is just COVID, but I didn't write it down. But
because for me, I just felt like starting the show with that will give us a very good plateau to where we are going to. And today we're talking about conflict resolution, first between spouses and also between children and parents, which in those lessons you've touched them. So we're just going to be like refreshing or rebaking or putting icing on the cake that you've already made. Number one is what do you think that in this season now, so we know that a lot of people lost their jobs or had jobs that were out of town and they had to come back home to stay in the house. So before it'd be like, oh, my husband does 3 weeks off, 1 week on, and now everybody's now living in the same house. People that have not lived in the same house for, I think it was a particular person that was saying that in the last 15 years, he has not stayed this much at home with his family before. Now, how do you manage those kind of conflicts where you are in each other's faces right now and everything is like, is in, everything is like any tiny thing causes friction. Every how do you manage it, or what are the ways to avoid them if they even come up? How do you make sure that you manage them well?
Okay. So I just want to start by saying that it would be unfair of me to project, my own reality on other people, right? So I acknowledge the fact that people have unique experiences and unique, situation and circumstances they're walking around. But
Yeah.
what I can say is, so what happened for us, and I'm going to share my own story, and if it makes sense, then you
Okay.
pick, what is relevant there, right? So what happened, first of all, in the first two, I think when it started, like the first, quite odd because you're on summer break or whatever, like you can't be in the same space with the children 247, like going nowhere and everything, and with the associated fear that came with all that, right? So it was a bit strange in the beginning, right? And so again, like I said in the last point, like malice is not welcome and things like what came with COVID-19 was fear, was anxiety, were all those emotions that also came into the space. So it's not only that we are in each other's faces, but these emotions that also came in as well. So I feel like it had to start from dethroning all those things that were going to come into our spaces to invade them. It had to start from the intentionality to make sure that that fear was not going to just penetrate our peace. That's number one. Right? So yeah. So that's where we and then I think another way that we handled that was thinking about, in a space, people want roles, people want responsibility, which they had in their workplace or whatever. And now we're just in this space. And it's like you just want to sit on the couch and be there doing and just be there, right? But as time went on, we had to discover our roles in this new normal and then acknowledge each person for that role that they occupy and then respect them for that role that they occupy. Right?
So I want to ask a question here because I've had a lot of younger, like single sisters message me and say, but when we start talking about gender role and there, a lot of younger or young adults are very, very whatever about all this. When it comes to gender roles, about feminism, they're very like the bone is very, 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 very hard when they're talking about it. But my question will now be, can you expand on talking about those roles? Because some people will say, but you're not supposed to have gender roles. Everybody's supposed to like do whatever they want to do in the house and da 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 da. So what's the first thing? So just put some clarity to when you say roles. What do you mean?
All right. So and I'm going to talk about how it works in our family. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have unique roles in the family to make the family a working unit. So it's not necessarily gender specific. There are days I do the garbage, and there are days when my husband does it. There are days when, anyway, cooking though, like it's my area. It's my area, and anytime like my husband feels like, and then he does it, it's my choice. I love it. I enjoy it, and so when you talk about gender roles, it starts from the relationship, or it starts from when you are in that relationship with that person before marriage. You see those things. You see what they believe a woman should do or should not do, right? You cannot, oh God. So you cannot be a single sister in a relationship with somebody, and the only time he sees you as a beautiful man is when you're pounding yam and sweating, and he's like, wow, you're so beautiful. And then in marriage, you're complaining about gender roles, or when so those things are really subtle. They're subtle messages we get in our single, period dates or going out or in courtship with this person. We all have those clues. So it's not until marriage that you start screaming gender roles. No, it happens like from the very beginning, right? All right. So in our home is not entirely cut out that that is forbidden to help the kids when they are stuck with school. And again, I'm saying that my dynamic is different and all that.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So that's
so basically it's more or less like something I believe in that and it's the same thing that works. Like whoever is good at something should handle it. It doesn't necessarily have to be that, oh, because Sister Ife as prepared pounded yam today, it is Sister Ife's forever job to always prepare pound. You get my point. So I
Mm-hmm.
think what
Mm-hmm.
you said, which is key, is you notice those things. Open your eyes to notice those things while you're single or when you're courting, so that you begin
Mm-hmm.
to try and discuss them and iron out those things, so that it's not that the guy's like in and this is part of what you said. God bless you. When you said the no, I want to remember what this thing you said, not no. Two different backgrounds create your own like you're from two different backgrounds, so create your family culture. And I think this is where it comes in, because if you don't create your family culture, you will carry the but my mom and my dad used to, my mom is the only one that enters the kitchen. That's not your own family culture. Both of you have to sit down to say, this is what works for us. Because you work 9
Mm-hmm.
to 5, I work 2 to 10. So what I will do
Yep.
is I'll make sure that maybe breakfast and lunch is ready. And please, before I so both of you sit down and create what will work. And I think that's part of what you also said now, that what works for my family might be different from what works for the other person's family. But this is how we manage things, right? So when you come and you were talking about making sure that in your own home the peace of God over was over, like whatever COVID that was going on. Now, as a teacher, I have heard a lot of people start saying, "Ah, God bless teachers, oh God bless." They're the ones that be saving our kids and all that. Do you
Yeah.
miss teaching, like going to school every time to teach? And how did you transfer that whole experience into now teaching your own kids at home, because now they are doing online schooling and stuff?
Okay. So how that worked for us was like we had to create a routine
Hmm.
in the home, because routine brings balance.
Hmm.
Even for our children, like had routine,
Hmm.
they
Hmm.
had roles that they played, in their own schools and all that. So we had to find a way to replicate, that sanity and routine in the house, because already COVID-19 already messed things up quite a bit. And then so we had to find a way
Yeah.
to bring that balance, to the
Hmm.
home.
Hmm.
So yeah, the routine was the first one. And then it wasn't about drawing up a routine for the children, for emphasis on for, right? We
Hmm.
had to draw that routine or
Hmm.
the schedule with children being heavily involved in it and planning it out. Because
Hmm.
in school they had recess, they
Hmm.
had crafts, like all
Hmm.
those things you necessarily don't do at home and all that. So
Hmm.
they had the freedom to sometimes even lead their own learning, like
Hmm.
not the teacher in their face every time. Okay, so
Hmm.
we had to find a way to balance that and bring that, try to customize it and find a way to work around homeschooling in the home, right?
Hmm.
So that's one way it worked. Also, we had to like leverage on each spouse's strength,
Hmm.
right? I know that I can handle K to 6 math, for example, but I know math is my husband's strength. So I just leave him to, and he does well. So I just, step aside on that, right? I know my own strength that I can handle with the kids, and then we use technology. And then the thing is, I also want to emphasize that there's a little bit of a sense of loss that came with COVID-19, right? Even for the kids, even for the younger ones, right?
Hmm.
Like now they're not like having time with their friends anymore,
Very
all
true.
that rich experiences that they had, all that hands-on learning, all that,
Hmm.
it was basically lost, and
Hmm.
lost suddenly. There was no warning. So the kids also came in with that emotion.
Hmm.
So as an adult, I remember being in a meeting and we're told, you know what, you have to be the adults in the situation. You have to be the adults in the situation and,
Hmm.
take a hold of things. And so that's
Hmm.
one way we try to navigate that with the kids,
Hmm.
now trying to build, like, use your kitchen as an art studio where the
Hmm.
kids can just paint
Hmm.
and, engage themselves in activities that help their mental health to strive to.
Hmm.
So, so routine is key. Like they can't just wake up at any time. They wake up at the same time every day of the
Hmm.
week,
Hmm.
and then we go with the routine. And then there's flexibility as well, because it's home, right?
Hmm.
And then yeah, one fun thing that also has worked for us is, trying to find ways to incorporate like the curriculum into what we do naturally. So, for example, the kids and I, we cook. Now
Okay.
I've had the chance to put cooking in my own curriculum in my house, because it's not acceptable. Like, cooking and praying, like even Bible study, like it's now in my own home curriculum. We do that. We refer to the Bible, like we pray, we do. So COVID-19 has also come with a lot of good things too, like that we can do freely, that the kids on a normal day won't have access to in their schools. So parents
So,
are empowered right now.
Before now, a lot of parents only see their kids, let's say in the evening when they're doing their assignments, and the kid is back into their room to do something. But now it's more or less like I've had parents have friction with their children, some of them saying that I don't even know who this child is because of these kind of characters or traits or things that is going on with them. And we're in a society that the biblical, to some families, the biblical spare the rod and spoil the child doesn't apply to some families, right? And you want to make sure there's some sort of balance. So how do you, as a parent, when, especially now that your kids are growing, from very soon they'll become like way older teenagers, and you'll be handling like teenagers in the house. How as a teacher, but as a mother, how do you make sure that there's some sort of how do you build that foundation now, right? Where they can approach you about anything, they can talk to you about anything. Like there won't be that place of, because the essence of the conversation is to create that solution before the problem happens, right? So we know that there'll be conflict every time, there'll be disagreement between parents and children. But how do you make sure that before they get to those years, or maybe they've even started like saying, "Mommy, no, I like this, or I want this," how do you make sure that you build that foundation where there's a level of trust, there's a level of transparency, and there's a level of they can come to meet you and say, "I did this wrong thing," and apologize about it?
I'm going to start from the last thing you said. I did this wrong thing and I'll apologize about it. A child won't come to you to tell you they did wrong if ever in life you've never apologized, you've never been human.
Wow.
They've never seen you fail.
Wow.
You've never acknowledged your own failings and your own flaws. Then they're not going to open up to you and be human. Right? So now what this situation has really exposed us to is the real humans in our children, right? And it is time to start connecting to those humans and the real experience of it. When I'm tired, they know, my kids know that I'm tired. Like I share this is my human experience. Like I'm tired, my tummy is aching me, blah, blah. Like I tell them, because at the end of the day, I want them to also be vulnerable enough to come to me when things are not working. It's very hard though, especially, if you're an African mom and you know us, we are dramatic, like we are emotional, and it's because we are concerned in a very good way. I was raised by one and I appreciate it. Like we are fierce, but then we have to come to a place where we can reach, we can really connect to the depths of our children. It takes prayers, it takes bonding, it takes relationship, it takes monitoring, right? We're not just going to say, oh, now they are learning online, and then we throw them in front of a computer and then we walk away. Sometimes you can I burst into my son's room anytime, and then I see sometimes and I'll be like, well, I trusted you though. Like I didn't expect you to be on that. I didn't expect so many windows to be open. What happened and everything? And then he goes, on a normal day, my natural instinct is to, pull it out. I say, but we need to connect with them on a human level, because another thing again is our children's teachers, they get our children to do things, to lead their own learning, right? Without yelling, spanking, and they get things done. So how can we now bring that kind of sanity into when we are not, and I yell too, so we're all in the same, like but just being aware that, all that yelling and all, it creates a whole environment of distrust and fear, and then kids start hiding things from us, and it begins from it starts from when they are little. It starts from when they are really young. Let's start from when they are young. I'm not, like I said, I'm not perfect. I'm learning. Like there are days when I'm just like, what, I can't do this. I can't do this, right? But then that's where we have the strength of God,
Hmm.
to fall
That's
back
that's
on.
that's really key. And I think, like you said, being vulnerable, and I think that's the opposite of the typical African upbringing, where you never see your parents say I'm sorry, or see your parents say I did this thing that is wrong, or I'm at
Mm,
fault. And I think that how do I call it? That place of empathy that
yeah.
God has I sometimes feel like God as our father does same, where he just comes to comfort us and say, I know you feel disappointed. And not necessarily disappointed in him, but because he feels what we feel. And I think that as the new generation of growing parents and new African, because I and my friend are going to be talking about becoming African parents on Friday.
Oh
And
wow.
one of the things that I've learned that I personally must begin to do is to understand that your children see you. So whatever you do is a reflection of what they put in their mind. Just like how the reflection of
Mm,
whatever my parents did is what sometimes I see put in my mind. And maybe I react to something, I'm like, this is so momsy. You understand? This is so
that's it.
popsy. But that factor of being true in the nature of vulnerability and
Mm,
saying sorry, and there's nothing wrong in that biblical principle of spoiling the sparing the rod and spoiling the child,
so,
or sitting down to
oh
talk
yes.
about it, but make sure there's a balance. I've had friends that their parents beat them out of anger and rage, and some of their body parts were till today are missing, right? And a lot of times, even when they used to correct us, it was more or less from a place of they were angry about something and they lash out, and that's the end. I remember that one of the things that made me understand that was a particular day
Mm,
where I came very late from school. I was in primary school then, and
okay.
what they call elementary school here. And that day, I didn't tell any. There were no phones as early as it was. There were no mobile phones, right? And I remember that I was in school till school was closed since like I think 2 or 3. And max, even if I was going to walk home, I was supposed to get home like 4, right? But my friend was like, oh, my mom said she's going to drop us at home. So I was like, okay, no problem. But nothing in my mind wanted me to like, oh, let me just go to someone's house or go home. And like, I don't know how I was so relaxed that day. And I was in school. And I believe my mom went on morning duty. So she finished work by 4. She gets home around 5. This girl is not at home. 6, this girl is not at home. So she comes to school, walks around, and staff school is very big, and walks around school, and she didn't see me, and she just saw me playing with leaves and sand on the floor. Oh, cha la 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 la. And I just got the one from my back with the stick on the shoe.
Ah!
And when we're going home, I cried. But when we're going home, so apparently she had bought like bolly and nepa and everything, and she was like, oh yeah, take. So she made me have my bath and everything. And after that experience, she sat me down, made me understand why this happened. Till today, the only
Mm,
reason why I can't, like, it's not like my mom is not like a that beats children, but the very few times that she will she would do that when we're growing up, she would
yeah.
explain why this. Sorry that you feel this way. I know that I was angry because I beat in front of your friends, but you have to understand that this concern is from a parent's place, that I've gone to work since 8 o'clock. I go back around 5:30, and I didn't see you at home. You understand? And there was
Mm,
no how I was going to call or know that this was going to happen. You get my point? So that
yes.
made me understand the place of humility as a parent, where no matter what it is that I do or I will do in my future, I have to let my kids understand that this is wrong, and this is why you were either spoken to or spanked or whatever at, and this is why you should do the right thing. And if mommy was angry, so for me, that made me rethink, if I use that word, right? And you saying that all over again just brought that memory back to me, that understanding that place of empathy when it comes to train of the child, that the child begins to trust you enough to come and talk to you about those things. But now I want to go to the aspect of being a wife first before being a mother, right? And that's
Okay.
a very weird thing that a lot of people don't always they always shuffle that, oh, I'm a mother first, but you first got married, right? When those children leave the house, it's you and your husband, and people always say that you have to create that place of friendship, you have to create that place of whatever it is that you have to create before those kids go out. Because when they go, it's you and this man. So both of you haven't been talking to each other for 30 years. You ain't going to happen. So how do you personally, how do you make sure that you manage? Because now you've given us several examples, and even with the 13 lessons in 13 years, how to make sure that malice is not in place, how to make sure that you guys are accountable to each other, a place of fellowship, a place of communication. How do you improve your communication in this kind of season where you are always together now 247? How do you improve the place of, okay, maybe you just talk together on the phone from time to time, but now, and even for other homes that, let's say their husbands have always worked out of town and now they're staying in the same place, how do you make sure that you improve your communication? What are the tools that you would recommend that people also utilize or you also use when it comes to open communication in the home?
Yeah, I think I spoke a little bit to that point, saying, okay, for example, there are families where, you know, the dad walks out of the city and then now he's back and all that. People function better in spaces where they have roles, and I'm not saying titles, roles, or you know what they do and all that, you know. And when that is the way, it looks like, okay, everything goes on fine, you know, mom handles everything, the children have roles, but that cannot just be here doing, like, it can't just be here, and that is not my reality. So I don't really want to speak as but my recommendation would be that, okay, now dad is home, you know, dad has a role, dad is needed. That is needed, you know. We can feel free to go to dad and say, yeah, dad, I need help with this and all that. And he's also, you know, he also has an open door policy, and he has arms open wide to take us, you know, into his own space too. And then I feel like one of the things that also happened in the beginning was having each person having their own space. To say, this is where I'm doing my own little. It might not be work. It might just be, you know, hanging, because we have situations whereby, you know, even both spouses are not working, or maybe one of them. So many dynamics, right, that we can't even really be concrete about this. But, you know, having that little corner and saying, okay, this is mine. I have my table. This is my office space. You know, be invaded by anybody and all that. All those things bring a level of sanity, you know, in the situation. So. Yeah, that's one of the
so the second part of the question is, like, what are the communication tools you recommend, or probably that have helped you over the years when it comes to home management, basically?
Okay, so finding a way to share how you feel without pointing fingers, right? And it also boils down to all the things that we've said. You know, my perspective might be entirely different from how my husband sees stuff. And so now we are in each other's faces. So I've learned that, okay, if I'm seeing something in a particular way, then I share with him and say, okay, I feel that. So is not working well. Okay, can we discuss about it? Can we do this? Like, just finding ways and not pointing as you are always doing this. And then being in the same space and then living in accusation will just make things fall apart, really. So just avoiding that spirit of accusation. So this is how you are. This is how you have been. But that's how we've been. It's just that we are together and then there's a spotlight on us right now. So it also boils down to what we've said about being human. We are human, like, and then just having compassion. Compassion is major. Is major in this. There are tough times and we can't now become tougher on ourselves in the same space. So I feel
so apart from because I know that you've touched on communication, you've touched on not pointing fingers. Are there other things that for you, there were things that were like your bedrock, especially probably those rocky years when you had a lot of disagreements, and before you learned all this, how were you able to manage those days?
Awesome. So I was talking with one of my friends during the weekend, and I don't know if I mentioned, but one of the lessons, well, along the way though, like, that I've also realized is sometimes we place a huge need on our spouses that only God can feel. Right? That only God can feel. So when you do that, your spouse is human too. Like, the person is in this marriage too, right? Right? And so when we place this huge need on people to fill this gap, to be everything and all in all to us, we begin to have problems. we will begin to have problems, because they too, they're in need of help, they're in need of divine help and grace to be married to you, this human being as well. So I feel like in those first 5 years, in fact, there was this that, I want to talk about something, it's going to be a very burning issue and everything. And my husband is just relaxed about it. And those years, you are just learning that, the man is different. He sees things differently. You are so different. And I want to talk about this, the way it's burning in my heart. And he's so lax about it. I'm like, can't you see that this thing is really a burning issue? Like, but then I also learned that, I have a heavenly Father as well, who is ready to hear my my humble cry and my humble rant. Everything. And I come to so knowing that, there's that gap that only God can fill. That's the truth. I don't know. It's a truth that, it's very hard.
Yeah.
This generation of love, I've heard people say, yeah, my joy, my, referring to their spouses, that you are my joy, my life, some gaps that I know that is only God.
Only God gives true joy.
He needs his own joy too from the Lord, right? So yeah, just knowing that only God can meet some needs that we do have, and you go to him in prayer. Prayer is powerful. Worship is amazing. It's in the place of worship where God fills our heart with everlasting joy and peace.
Yes.
That you come out and then you're a blessing to that.
Yeah.
All this I'm saying is not like I said, it's not like we've not had our own, tough times and everything, but it's just God. It's just the grace of God.
Guys, so if you have any questions for Sister Ife, please put in the comment section or use the question box if you're using Instagram, and if you're on Facebook also, you can also send us questions via the comment section. But my final one before we go is, I know you're in the music ministry, and it's not always been when it comes to production, when it comes to recording, when it comes to ministration and all that. How have you been able to kind of balance, just within 30 seconds, have you been able to balance with all that with the home and with spending and with your, I can't even argue that your husband doesn't support you. It's only a blind person that we see that that we see your husband doesn't support you. So how do you put a balance to it when it comes to ministrations, productions and stuff like that?
Goes back to communication. My family knows, they know everything about where I'm going and things like that. And because we live in North America here, traveling and leaving your home behind as a woman and all that, it's pretty dicey. So for most of the ministrations that we've had by the grace of God, even some of them out of this city, we've gone as a family. We've been going together. And I gave that response because I don't want to give a cliche response and saying it's the grace of God, but it has been the grace of God combining all these things together. It has been the grace of God. And like you said, it costs a lot. It takes the understanding of it takes understanding, from your spouse. And you don't have to be in the music ministry. Both in marriages, people both have callings and all that. You sacrifice, and then it's all part of the journey, right? So it's just been by the help of God, I must say.
Wow. Guys, please help me say a big thank you to Sister Ife.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much for having me.
We're super grateful. Thank you very much. If you've not heard or seen or heard about her, please make sure that you go to iTunes and get her 2019 EP. It's called Wonder. You can follow her at Ife Oil of Joy Music, and you can also check iTunes and just type Ife Adetoyi, and y'all will not want to miss any of those songs. But a big thank you to you, sis. God bless you. You can follow her on Facebook at Ife Adetoyi. Follow her on Instagram at Ife Oil of Joy Music. God bless you, people. Thanks, sis. God bless you. Bye.
Amen. God bless you too. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, people. I'm super grateful. It was an amazing session. And don't forget that now our live sessions are now on our IGTV, so you have access to rewatch this again. But I believe that if you didn't learn anything the first hour where she shared her 13 lessons, you're able to learn something from the second hour where she shared about conflict resolution, being a parent, being a teacher, being a mother. I know that for you, you might feel like, oh, it was rushed, but I understand the one thing, that when God has a plan and purpose on how he wants to direct things, he doesn't need anybody's approval, anybody's long hours for it. He just goes directly and does amazing stuff for us. And today I've learned a lot. Like, I've learned a lot from her experience, and it's helped and shaping my mindset on how to even do things moving forward. And has even opened my mind to things that I felt like I've forgotten when it comes to like children, family, and stuff. But it's very important that we do this. So don't forget that you can get this on the podcast at Life Matters with Adetoyi. Just check Google Podcasts, iTunes, Castbox, Deezer, whichever podcast you listen to. Check out Life Matters with Adetoyi. And also you can get it on our Facebook page at Life Matters with Adetoyi. You can get it on Instagram's IGTV at Life Matters with Adetoyi. And also, guys, you can also get this on our YouTube channel at Adetoyi. Please don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And shout out to every 155 people that are subscribed so far. Please make sure that your friends, your family, make sure that they subscribe to the YouTube channel and get amazing content. Till I see you next week on my final episode this month, as we're talking about love, relationship, and family. This month of May, we're going to be ending it with a bang, like a bang, bang, bang. But God bless you. Till I see you next week. I celebrate you. God be with you in the name of Jesus. God cause his face to shine upon you. Bye.